if we don't pay any of the conditional appropriations except those for salary increases for teachers and instructors, at the end of the biennium, the surplus ought to be between $45 and $50 million.
That's September 30th next year.
It'd be 71, the end of the biennium, yes, sir. Now, I have not reviewed the conditional appropriations in the last 3 or 4 months because it was too early in the year to have a picture about what surpluses might exist. And I will not review them until after the election is over to get into them in depth.
Witnessed probably since the end of World War II a decline in passenger trains from 10,000 to less than 500 passenger trains in the United States. That's a 20-fold decline. And what we've been faced with is our post offices were all originally located as part of or very close to the passenger terminal. The trains aren't coming in there anymore, so we have to use other means, or we find ourselves in the wrong place, and we can't get a new facility built fast enough. We find that maybe we should have moved to the freight terminal because we're having to use fast freight and scheduled freight services to date instead of the passenger train. When aircraft travel started picking up very rapidly through the 50s, our next approach was we need a post office out near the airport. Well, we finally found out that we have much of our mail goes less than 500 miles, and the airplane doesn't help us very much in distributing this mail. So now we have to swing back again. Our environment has changed, and it's changed continuously in every way, shape, and form, and we have not been able to respond.
Well, of course, everyone has a different idea as to a basic issue, but the main issue is just good, hard-hitting government, which I intend to become a part of when I'm elected.
You know, there's been quite a bit of criticism aimed at lawyers serving in the legislature. How do you feel like a good lawyer, how should he act in the legislature?
Well, I believe that some of the criticism is misguided, but nevertheless, I personally am an honest man. I intend to remain honest and do the best job that I know how for the people of this county.
What are some of the proposals that you offer for the legislature, if you're elected?
I stand for good quality education for our children. The future lies in the children, and we must see that they get the best quality education possible.
You seem to be pretty successful thus far getting in the runoff, and one of your names, campaign names, is Fighting Jim. Why did you select Fighting Jim as your campaign name?
Well, that's specifically what I intend to do for the people when I get there. I intend to fight for them. I intend to stand up for them. I've had experience making decisions. In Vietnam, many times a decision will say whether or not men will live or die. I intend to fight for the people when I get into the legislature.
We've got to get this tax burden off of the working man. He's taxed on his food, his medicine, his gasoline taxes are way out of proportion, and something's got to be done to get these taxes lowered. I think also that we need a strong code of ethics in the legislature, and I, for one, am going to work hard and support legislation that will prevent any legislator from doing business with the state of Alabama. They have a bill like this in Georgia, and it's very effective, and we need this, I think, in Alabama. We've been criticized quite a bit because of our last few sessions of the legislature and some of the legislators doing business with the state. So I'm going to support this bill very strongly. I spent 2 years in the infantry as a platoon leader, and this has been an issue in my particular race, and I don't think this ought to be an issue at all. We got thousands of people tonight watching me on TV that are veterans that serve in the Army. I think the issues are, as I outlined, code of ethics, businessmen, successful businessmen, aggressive young men in state government, tax burden on our working people. These things are just one of many that I think are the real issues, and not whether I was in the Army or my opponent.
No, sir, I cannot at this time. We looked at this question at great length last spring in the special session of the legislature on education. In fact, we spent about 3 weeks trying to work out a way whereby we could remove the sales tax on food and medicines during that special session. But in checking the revenue figures on what that tax produces, it's in excess of $50 million a year. And to remove it would mean having to replace it, because the sales tax is the real basis of our entire educational effort in Alabama. To take away over $50 million from the Special Educational Trust Fund would mean a severe cutback in support to public education at all levels. He was appointed in 1963. He was reappointed in 1967 by my predecessors, and then I reappointed him after I took office.
Because the revenues produce more money than the appropriations. That's the same as if it were prorated. This would amount to about a 12.3% reduction of the 1969-70 appropriation. The average in every classroom in Birmingham, 3.2 students. The utilities would have already been documented by a study that was made in 1968, which pointed out at that time that we had far greater need. The public in Alabama today is confused over the present school crisis. Demands are being made that our schools bear the brunt of a new social order. In many areas, public education is seriously threatened. But may I remind you that the vast majority of Alabamians will have to rely upon public education for their children. Even if we do have a surplus of $50 million in our trust fund on September 30, 1971, the public should be reminded that the recent Alabama Education Study Commission, composed mainly of lay citizenry, documented the need for an immediate expenditure to meet the educational need then existing of approximately $200 million for current operation and almost $900 million for new and renovated buildings and other facilities. The 1969 legislature responded by appropriating an additional $55 million for 1969-70 and $65 million for 70-71. The Alabama Education Association believes that these matters should be called to the attention of the public during this present political campaign, and that the people should express themselves to the candidates regarding the need to continue and increase the support for schools until they rate at the top of the nation. Well, I think most people who study school finance say this, that Alabama is already, in terms of state effort, making a tremendous effort in proportion to other states and in proportion to its wealth on a state level. However, when compared with other states in terms of local support, we have not fared quite as well. We rank very low in comparison. Two things seem inevitable: death and taxes. The first we can't control, so our attention tends to focus on taxes.
I want to see industry brought to Montgomery County. As I've said on many occasions, we have everything in Montgomery County to attract business and industry, and yet we have very little of that here. I think that the legislature should be a stepping stone to bring industry into Montgomery County, and I intend to work along that line. In Montgomery County, we need park and recreational facilities for our people, and I'm going to work for that. And the one theme that I have been on, my opponent is a lobbyist and general counsel for the Alabama Dairy Products Association, the milk distributors, and as I've shown on television before, you can buy a half gallon of milk out at Maxwell Air Force Base for 36, 37 cents. That same milk costs 57 to 60 cents for the people of Montgomery County to buy in their local stores. Something is wrong. I don't know exactly what it is, but I know that something is wrong, and I'm going to ask for an investigation of that.
Now, I took the gloves off there to go to work to set the record straight. I'd like to say that, first of all, that my opponent and I are both in the general practice of law. We both represent clients and have various interests and various problems. Now, when I was practicing law the short time than my opponent, I did not have any retainers, but as I practiced 15 years and have become knowledgeable in certain areas of law, I have obtained several retainers. Now, a retainer is nothing more than a salary is to a working man, or renewals are to the insurance agent as he progresses in his insurance profession. Now, this $30,000 retainer, I say without any question, is a deliberate lie on the part of my opponent to mislead the voters and to make it look like I am some sort of a sinister person who is not able and capable of representing the people. He could have said 10,000, 20, 50, or 100,000, and every one of them would have been the same lie. He manufactured this $30,000 I don't have any idea where he might have found it, because I've never made a $30,000 retainer at any time during the 15 years that I practiced law.
This is an example of noise pollution. Through a grant from the Alabama Vocational Rehabilitation Service, Auburn University is launching a program to assist industries in meeting newly enacted federal regulations aimed at protecting employees' hearing. The Auburn Speech and Hearing Clinic is conducting 3-day short courses each month for industrial nurses to train them at administering pure tone threshold hearing tests. According to Dr. Curtis Smith, director of the Speech and Hearing Clinic, the nurses will return to their plants, administer the hearing test to each worker, and send the results to the Speech and Hearing Center at Auburn, where evaluations are then made.
In effect, what this means is when employees are subjected to sound levels exceeding those listed in the regulations, feasible administrative and engineering controls shall be initiated and utilized. If these controls fail to reduce the noise levels to within acceptable limits, prescribed personal protective equipment shall be provided and used by employees. Here, for example, is a type of ear muff which is familiar to all of us. You've seen them worn by employees working around noisy aircraft. There are many other types of hearing protective devices other than these. Do I look like a spaceman? It might save my hearing.
A continuing program pertaining to disorders in speech and hearing is also provided for students and student families, including comprehensive examinations.
Here in our hearing test laboratory, one of our students majoring in audiology is testing a person suspected of having a hearing loss. Right now, he is checking her what we call pure tone threshold to see how well she can hear various frequencies. He will later administer other types of hearing tests to see how well she understands what she hears.
An integral part of the clinic's work is done with preschool-age deaf children. Here, help for the deaf child comes in the form of language, through the use or creation of symbols.
Charlie, pants. Good. Right, pants.
The Auburn Deaf Education Program is a language stimulation program which teaches the children to use symbols. And while work with speech pathology, hearing disorders, and preschool-age deaf education continues, the Auburn University Speech and Hearing Clinic involves itself with environmental noise pollutants, leading to a significant expansion of Auburn University's contribution to the state and nation.